Hey, thanks so much for joining me here on a live from Ireland episode of the Traveling in Ireland podcast. I have just finished probably one of the best whiskey tastings in my life with Carl O'Grady, and we are sitting on Clare Island in Clew Bay, County Mayo, and kind of, twisted his arm a little bit to talk a bit about Clare Island and Clew Bay. So Carl, thank you so much for agreeing to this after we've had a bit of whiskey.
You're very welcome. Best time to chat.
So we've had an amazing day. I came over on the boat from Bruna.
Harbour,
Yep. And then you told me your brother owns the boat, right?
That's right.
Your family has been in Clare Island for generations. You are deep. I mean, your roots are deep in this area.
Yeah,
so
sure.
can you start with what is it about Clare Island, Clew Bay that people maybe don't know and might want to do a little research on before they start planning their trip?
Sure. I suppose. Firstly, I suppose I know the market we're talking to is obviously the North American market, and they have a perception of Ireland, and I've seen that over the years, and Ireland is set up to meet that market, and that comes into Dublin, and it hops on coaches and cars, etc., and they head to Cork or West Cork, Kerry, County Clare, Galway, Aran Islands, and back to Dublin, and that's the main artery of the tourism. But I think Mayo has been a little bit forgotten, and I think it's an absolute hidden gem. And I always say to people, come to County Mayo, come to Clew Bay, come to Clare Island, because it really is a case of slow down culture, I think. People need to slow down when they come here. It's not about doing all the highlights like the Cliffs of Moher, and which is a massive machine and everybody sees it, and it's beautiful, there's no question. The Aran Islands, culturally significant, the Irish language, of course, people want to see it. But I would say to people that make that your second holiday. Your first holiday, come to Ireland, come to the West, come to Mayo, come to Clew Bay, come to Clare Island, and just slow down. Just totally slow down. Get out of your car and talk to people on the side of the road, on the beaches, farmers, fishermen. Walk the roads, the greenways, and just slow down and chat to people, because it's a completely different type of tourism. People up here are very welcoming. They're very nice, and the one thing I know about the North American market is that most of you are connected to us
in some way, shape, or form.
And we spoke about that today in the Irish story of emigration. And some people know where they're from, and others don't.
Right.
But we all have a story, and that story is sometimes forgotten. But it's there, and you can still find remnants of it and parts of it by coming to a place and by speaking to people and just having an understanding of the history of the place, because that history is very, very, very obvious, and it's written on the landscape. It's everywhere. It's the famine. It's the potato ridges. It's the old houses, villages and stuff. So it really is everywhere for people to come and see. And so I would say. Clare Island is my home. It's where I was born. It's where I was raised, and where I chose to live my life, and hopefully, leave it better than I found it, and that's what we can all aspire to. We see that kind of market coming to us, that slower, more kind of discerning,
Intentional,
yeah, good word. Yeah, intentional. We see that as a really good mix for us. A slower, kind of more intentional market, and I hope that many of your listeners listening to this will kind of think about that and come and say hello.
So it hasn't been that long since I had Biddy Hughes on the podcast. Biddy has been a friend of mine for years and years, and she's at the Westport estate, which is going through a massive update in so many ways, and is going to be, I think, a great draw. Maybe starting out with more people from Ireland coming over and discovering this part of the Wild Atlantic Way, and the North Americans, the Australians will always follow on that. One of the things we talked about was how Westport is such a great base for day trips.
Yeah.
And Clew Bay is huge. I mean, it has 365 islands, one for every day of the year, they say.
Yeah, I think it's less. I think that might be a little bit of a fable, but we'll run with it. Clew Bay is amazing. Westport Estate are doing incredible work, and Biddy is one of the machines behind it. But what they're doing is going to be really significant, because it really gives. It's going to help try and draw that attention away from that main artery that we spoke about, and it's going to be the kind of anchor that we can all build our businesses around. Because when people come, and they'll come to Westport, because Westport's an amazing town, but also because Westport Estate is going to be a brand.
Right.
And it's going to be an attraction, and it's going to be an incredible. I mean, if people understood what they're doing down there, the Hotel de Grace is going to be beautiful, 5 stars, etc. But there's lots of 5-star hotels.
Right.
But what they have that others don't is they have Westport Estate. You have the house. And culturally significant. That was one of the residents of Grace O'Malley, which is connected back to our story here on Clare Island, and they're bringing that story to life. They've got the walled gardens, and then the real kind of, they have the adventure park, of course, for the kids. But the real thing that they're going to do, which I think is really powerful, is this whole idea of these other worlds, these landscapes that they're going to build around the architecture of Irish mythology. And I think that's going to be really exciting. So listen, Westport Estate is going to be really a draw and an anchor to bring people to the area, and then people will ask, what do we do on day 2, day 3, day 4, and then we're going to be part of that solution, and we're going to be looking to attract those groups to come and individuals to come and visit us. And around Clew Bay, you've got Macalla. Keene Bay is one of the best beaches in the world, nominated, National Geographic, and you can go down and see the basking sharks down there, and they swim right by my door here, little sharks and whales and everything. You'd be amazed what goes by my door. But Achill is a real destination in itself, and right down the Greenway, which runs from Westport down to Achill, is an incredible experience along an old railway, again through all these culturally significant villages, etc. In Newport Town you have the great Kelly's Butchers that have the most incredible black pudding that you could ever have. The whole of France nearly came to celebrate his black pudding in the celebration and the festival many years ago. You've got in the Inner Bay, you've got Jerry Gannon down there, the Clew Bay Seafoods, who has an incredible oyster experience that people can go down and learn how to gather oysters, how to open them, taste them with different things. It's an incredible and an infectious laugh. He's got one of these laughs that when he laughs today, the whole room will laugh with him. So, and then you go around the other side of the bay, and you have Meskin on the shoulder of Crowpatrick, and Killian there has 9 beers, and I take his beers sometime, and I do tastings for groups that come and do sea safaris with me off the back of Clare Island under the mega cliffs, as we call them, which puts the cliffs of Moher to shame. There's thousands of people a day looking at the cliffs of Moher. There's nobody back there except 1 or 2 fishermen, and I've brought people back there and they're just blown away by it. Gannet colonies and gannets jumping, flying around you. But I've done his beer tastings back there, where you taste these 9 different beers from 9.5% down to 4.5%, and I'll tell you, they blow your mind. Some stunning beers, and he has a great experience going on up there. And then you come out to Louisburg town. You have a fabulous beach just in from us here, and again, great community, and some of the best beaches in Ireland, all the way out as far as the mouth of the Killery, into Glenkeen Farm, another fabulous facility and offering there with sheepdogs and sheep trials and all the stuff that people can experience. And then, of course, Clare Island itself, and you come across the short trip across the bay from Runa Harbour, and it's a 20-minute ferry ride. My brothers bring it across, Alan O'Brien and the Big Blue Ferry, and they land you here on Clare Island. You're met by Grace O'Malley's castle, and the story of Grace O'Malley is one that everybody's going to know quite soon, because I believe Hollywood are doing a big movie on her. And now they've bought the rights to the book from Anne Chambers. If anyone wants to read about the story of Grace O'Malley,
terrific book.
It's an amazing book, yeah. Anne Chambers brought her out of life. I mean, I brought her out of mythology, I should say, and brought her to fact.
Yeah.
She was written out of the history books, the annals of Ireland, by men, of course, because they didn't like the concept of this powerful woman, Queen of Connaught, self-proclaimed Queen of Connaught.
Right.
And but you're met by her castle at the harbour, and a blue flag beach just inside of that, and then a community, a real small, intimate community that work together to try and survive. I mean, we in terms of the future, the island, our population is dropping,
right,
which is similar across Ireland. Lots kids move to the more densely populated population centres, and places like this suffer because of that. But you still have a very kind of an intimate group of people here that are all about the community and trying to keep it and nurture it into the future. And that's really what it's about.
So I had a wonderful chat with Mary on the boat on the way over, and just so welcoming to somebody who obviously was sitting on a boat not belonging to because it was like so many people coming back to their houses after being over on Ireland, on the mainland for a little bit, coming over with their shopping and things for their homes. So it's like almost immediately you are enveloped by the community as you cross. And it's one of those places that even if, or it feels like to me, I could be wrong, but even if tourism becomes a big thing, I don't see Clare Island becoming Inishmore. I don't know that you have the ability, the infrastructure to become that big. So it would always kind of have that feeling of being that almost hidden special place.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Inishmore has got amazing harbours. Number one, that you can operate in now to all year round. They've got these massive ferries, and they're fast, so access up there is quite easy, and they operate all year round. And then in the summer, like there could be 2,000 or 3,000 people a day going onto those islands.
Right.
It's chaos. But don't get me wrong, they're beautiful islands, and again quite culturally significant. But I mean, Clare Island is. We've got small harbours. We're cut off a lot of the time in the winter. I mean, you can't get here sometimes.
Right.
So it just takes that little bit extra to come here. You need to think about things, and you need to plan your day, and you need to know what you're doing, and to get to Runa, to make that journey across. But it's a special journey, and I think, when you talk about stories of Irish myth and legend, the concept of crossing water was a very powerful concept in Irish mythology. It was, you were leaving something behind to take on something new. You were leaving your problems behind. And I think that really is often the case when people come to an island. There's a sense of leaving something to go somewhere new. And it's quite refreshing. So you're open for anything when you get to a place like this. Your eyes are wide open, and you're just taking in everything that's happening around you. And as I said to you, if the landscape could talk, you'd have this thousands of years of this culture and this history just imprinted into your mind, which is pretty cool. But the island is very, it's very small. It's 5 miles long, we're 3 miles wide. It's 4,500 acres in total. Population of about 100 people now all year round. When I grew up, there was about 22 kids in the school. Now there are about 13. So there's a negative trend.
Right.
But, and that's a huge part about what we're trying to do with Clare Island Whiskey. We've looked to Scotland and we've seen the islands, how they have really benefited from that industry and the Irish and the Scottish industry, Scottish whiskey industry, and that's what we're trying to replicate, but to a much lesser extent. We want it to be very much about slow tourism. I have no global ambitions for Clare Island whiskey. If you see my whiskey on a shelf in America, I won't have put it there. What we want to do is develop something very unique, so that you come here, you experience it, and you meet the maker, and you learn about it, you learn about the island and what it's benefiting. That when you come and you see what we're doing and you understand what we're doing, very importantly, and then you buy something and you leave and take it with you, that you understand that you're part of a solution, you're part of something that we're trying to rebuild and trying to develop and create a future for. So that's kind of where it's at.
So I know you mentioned that when people arrive on the island, they are met by Granuel's Castle. What other highlights of the island would people be seeing on a visit?
So I suppose the castle really is a huge story because of its the significance of Grace and Mary. I mean, that's just first, people really should read that book and learn that story, because it's a fascinating story, especially for women. Because it really is female empowerment, and I mean, Jesus, this woman was something else. She was a force of nature.
I'll link it in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then of course you have the landscape. We have mountains, we have lakes, we have incredible walks. There's bikes to rent. There's the cliffs that we spoke about, which are just spectacular, and you can view them from the lighthouse. And the lighthouse itself is a destination, and people come and stay at the lighthouse. It's a bed and breakfast. And my uncle was the last lighthouse keeper there in the 60s, but it's been rejuvenated, reinvested in by a German gent, Gustav Fischer, who's invested heavily into it and created this incredible property and brought it back to life. So that really is a destination for people in itself. And then you have the Abbey, the 12th century Abbey, which is kind of the heart and soul of the island, really. It's the burial place of Grace O'Malley, 12th century. You've got these ceiling paintings that are from the 13th and 14th century. And, there's a secret code waiting to be deciphered, and we spoke about that earlier on. So there's great fun around that, trying to understand the paintings and what's unique about them. And the graveyard, lots of history in that connected to the graveyard.
Beautiful walks, right?
Oh, the walks are spectacular. I mean, they really are. They're breathtaking. I mean, when you look across the landscape inside us, there's a vista right down from Macalla Head all the way right around Clew Bay, mountainous into the inner bay, and then you go to Croagh Patrick right in front of us, cross Sheafrey over to the Killery Fjord and everything, and then the islands to our right, Inishturk and Inishboffin. So it's an incredibly dramatic coastline all around us. I suppose then in terms of the island, for there's lots of different types of accommodation. We have our local bar here, and lots of talent in terms of our singers, songs and dancing, all of that happens down there quite regularly. And Blue Flag Beach, bike hire, of course Clare Island Whiskey, tastings, tours, and Bayview House, of course, what we're sitting in today is a property of my main business, where families and groups and gatherings can come for celebrations, and they take over the whole house. It has its own private bar.
Yeah, it's stunning.
And it's quite beautiful, yeah. And then we can cater into it as well for groups if they wish to come and stay. So there's a whole array. There's between lighthouses and private houses and bed and breakfasts and taxis and bike.
But you're never going to feel like you're surrounded by tourists.
Definitely not.
You laugh at me.
Quite the opposite.
Yeah.
Quite the opposite. I mean, it's really is very, very quiet and you know, very, very, very. It's unique. Yeah.
Special for sure. Carl, where can people find out more about Clare Island Whiskey, and if they're traveling as a kind of a multi-generational trip and want to get off that tourist trail, more about the accommodation?
Sure. Well, Clare Island Rentals.com is our property here that we're sitting in now, looking across the bay. So that's where you can rent this property. Clare Island Ferry is .com is how you get the details on the brothers' boats. ClareIsland.ie gives you all the accommodation, all the list of the guest house, etc., and food offerings, etc. On the island, and Clare Island Lighthouse if you want to stay there. We also have a fabulous, if people are into yoga, Kira, I didn't mention, she's a wonderful property and business back there. She does yoga retreats for up to a week at a time, and she does vegan, organic cookery courses, and she has her own cafe back there where she serves all of her own homegrown produce from her polytunnels and everything. She's got a very unique business back there, very different.
Nice.
So there's lots of different things you can do, and that's called Macalla Farm.
Okay.
And so there's lots of different things you can come and get involved in and stay for a bit of time.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for showing me Clare Island, for letting me taste your really, really good whiskey, and for sharing all of this. It's been great.
You're very welcome. Yeah, thank you for coming.